Nothing captures the promises and challenges of democracy like Twitter. On one hand, it's profoundly egalitarian. Everybody gets 140 characters. Individuals can initiate action even if they lack the traditional sources of political power like wealth. On Twitter, the playing field is level, the barriers to entry are low, and it is easy to generate collective action. But maybe you'll remember that our founders had some concerns about democracy. James Madison wrote in the Federalist Paper number 10, measures are too often decided not according to the rules of justice and the rights of the minor party, but by the superior force of an interested and overbearing majority. Comedy Central's Stephen Colbert felt that superior force in the form of a Twitter hashtag last week. On last Thursday's show, Colbert satirized Washington, D.C.'s football team's owner, Dan Snyder's attempts to pacify critics of the team's logo. The Colbert Show Twitter account then tweeted just the punchline from that segment. And by itself, without context, the tweet was clearly anti-Asian. The outcry was immediate. Hashtag Cancel Colbert became a trending topic for more than 24 hours. On Monday, Colbert addressed the controversy in a way that only Stephen Colbert could.
Who would have thought a means of communication limited to 140 characters would ever create misunderstanding? The Cancel Colbert people think that even in context, I am a racist. I just want to say that I am not a racist. I don't even see race, not even my own. People tell me I'm white, and I believe them because I just devoted 6 minutes to explaining how I'm not a racist.
While Colbert received the bulk of the attention, the movement that was lost in the mix were the Native Americans who have organized against Snyder's team mascot. And that is a problem, according to Jeff Yang, who wrote in the Wall Street Journal, quote, in short, we have arrived at the era of the weaponized hashtag, where loosely organized and barely controlled social mobs swarm institutions and individuals at a scale large enough so that the trending of the hashtag itself becomes news, often overwhelming discussion of the topic that originally spawned it. At the table, Jeff Yang, columnist with the Wall Street Journal Online, who wrote that article on the weaponized hashtag. Selena Maxwell, a political analyst at Grio.com contributor. Brittany Cooper, who is assistant professor of women and gender studies at Rutgers University, and MSNBC anchor Richard Louie. So nice to have you all here. So, Jeff, I want to start with you. Is Twitter a revolution or a mob?
It's a little of both, right? I mean, I think a lot of revolutions have begun with quote-unquote mobs, and a lot of that is a matter of perspective. But I do think that one clear thing that comes from this is that the egalitarianism of Twitter, the notion that we all have 140 characters to vote with, so to speak, is a little bit of an illusion, like anywhere else. The larger voice, the people who have the greater number of followers, the more ability to retweet and signal amplify, end up becoming the primary message. And frankly, that means that they get more attention in other places beyond the digital space.
I guess what does feel more egalitarian, though, is that you don't need to be hired by a news organization, right? You don't need a university to give you tenure in order to build that following, right? So yes, there's still a hierarchy, but the hierarchy is not necessarily attached to the goods and resources that exist in kind of traditional political spaces?
Right. I mean, it disrupts traditional hierarchies and it creates new ones. And those hierarchies, in many ways, can place people who are historically not in the center of the communication, in the center of the ability to generate and manage dialogue, at the top. And I think we've seen that here, which is really interesting and really valuable. But it's also a little frightening. And I think that what we've seen is when things are seen on Twitter as an ability, as a means to communicate or even more importantly perhaps, just draw attention to a message, it is a tremendously powerful tool. When that power is then levied against a single individual who steps out of line, it becomes a lot more like, I don't know, cyberbullying. That term has been used.
So Richard, as you look at that particular moment, the Cancel Colbert moment, because I think for all of us who engage with Twitter, there are moments when we feel like, yeah, go Twitter, get Twitter. And there's other times we're like, oh God, is this happening? Oh no, right? So how did you experience that Cancel Colbert moment?
You know, the Cancel Colbert hashtag, when that came out, you had to really read in to find out what was the process, the timeline that progressed over that period of, 24 to 48 hours. When I look at what Sui Park told the New Yorker, though, and her intent behind this, she's basically saying, hey, I know the way this system works. I know how this pool is. I know how warm the water is. Why can't I get in and swim too? I really don't want Colbert to be canceled, but I know that this is an opening for me to get my message out, just like many other people do. So why not? Why not me using this very same process? I have that ability, and I should, whether you see it as a revolution or not.
Well, so it's interesting in part because. So just so folks know, if you hadn't been following this, Suey Park is the Twitter activist who really started the Cancel Colbert hashtag. So part of it is, Zerlina, though, it feels to me like one of the things that is rewarded in the warm water of Twitter and in the warm water of cable news is outrage, right? I mean, nothing makes a better segment or a better tweet that I can't even believe, right? And then, right, so, oh, let's go get outrage. But outrage is not always leading us to the most complex analysis.
No, and I think that, you know, it's a both and conversation. So you can start a conversation on Twitter because you're outraged about something that happens in the real world. But then what are you doing in the real world to couple your Twitter activism to help, you know, change the conversation around that issue? So, for example, one of the things I talk about a lot is rape culture. I read an op-ed in Time, which I found really offensive, and I was outraged. And so I chose to react to that by starting a hashtag and also writing a response in Time. And so it was both and. It was Twitter and also offline activism that allowed, well, really not offline. It was a Time op-ed online, but it was something that, you know, so it's still online. I can't leave the internet.
It's all very blurry now.
Clearly I can't leave the internet.
I haven't been out of my house in 6 months. I mean, Richard, I felt you responding to Zerlina there when she was talking about the both and of activism.
Yeah, the both ends of activism, as you look at it. And when I go back to Suey Park and what the Asian American Pacific Islander community is trying to say is, hey, you know, this is a voice that we don't often have an opening to get out our message. So let's do it. And it may not be well accepted. I may not have really calculated this cancel Colbert after effect, and that's what she was saying. You know, I just kind of had time that evening. Why not? I'm gonna do this. And it also says, hey, look, I get to define what she's saying. I get to define my space for me and for us and my argument. It is not being told to me as to what is worse racism in her words.
Right. I mean, it does feel to me like critically important, the insertion of that voice, right? To just sort of stand in this space and say, you know what, us too, right? But on the other hand, as you pointed out, Jeff, the question is then who also gets silenced around it. So we got more to say on this, and Brittany, I'm going to bring you in because when we come back, we're going to talk about something that's actually been happening all during the show. It's very self-referential. That is Black Twitter. We've got a little bit on the funny side of Black Twitter, and yes, if you don't know about this, it's an actual thing. I didn't just make that up. It's a thing.